This week on Extracts, matter, antimatter, sure, fine, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's the Destructive Powers episode. Welcome to Extracts, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is Destructive Powers.
Look, all the themes aren't winners. Speaking of not winners, the Star Trek episode we'll be discussing today is the Season 1 episode, Alternative Factor. What can I say? It's definitely an episode of Star Trek that was recorded. And that's about the only good thing. Look, I have to show Erin every single one of these damn episodes. There are some bad ones. It follows a dude who is 2 dudes, 1 matter, 1 antimatter, and ne'er the twain shall meet, because if they do, 2 whole universes will be exploded. Talk about destructive powers, eh?
Shut up.
Whatever, at least if it's the theme. And also, Erin loved this episode? I don't know. We'll get to it. There's no accounting for taste.
Fuck you. Oh, fuck. And for the X-Files, while I had a lot of destructive powers to choose from, including a dude who can walk through walls after being trapped in a tornado, which I think we're going to get to later, actually. It's a very weird
Destructive
episode.
power is just the being of Mulder. Just kidding.
You're not wrong. So many to choose from. I finally landed on an essential X-Files episode from season 3, the one with Ryan Reynolds in it. That's right. It's the classic episode of planetary alignment, raging hormones, and intensely close female friendships. They're not gay. They're definitely not gay. Syzygy.
Sound wasted. You've had 1 beer. Between your, laughing fits and the 1 beer, this is gonna be
A wild episode. This episode may be kind of weird and confusing when you watch it the first time, but the planet's telling Mulder he has to make the grossest upper screwdrivers of all time and fuck a lady he's just met while Scully angrily smokes the first cigarette she's had since she's 16. Make it all worth it.
Drink every time Erin laughs.
Do you want to die?
Drink a screwdriver every time Erin laughs.
Just load up, get a can of concentrate.
Do they even sell those anymore?
Yes, of course.
Oh, I don't know. It's been a long time since the 90s.
You think college students don't still make jungle juice? What are you talking about?
This is all we drink when we watch the X-Files movies.
Oh, no. Jungle juice or cup?
Or just vodka.
Concentrate.
No name. Vodka.
Oh, fuck.
Yes, I am ready for digging in there, Mr. Spock.
Fantastic. I'm glad you heard me.
I want facts, not poetry.
Are you ready for a quick-ish episode summary?
Ish?
The Enterprise crew is bored as hell, orbiting a seemingly uninteresting planet. But then, they get thrown all around while the universe winks out. Twice! Kirk is pissed about it, and Spock is like, yeah, it does seem impossible, but it totes happened. Then Spock is all, there's a human on this planet that wasn't there before. And Kirk is like, ugh, fine, let's go down to this planet and deal with this. So Spock, Kirk, and 2 red shirts, who live, beam down to the planet, find a cute-ass little spaceship, and watch an insane man with a terrible beard slip off a cliff. Naturally, they drag this dude back to the ship because of ethics or whatever. It's Bones' problem now. Then Starfleet contacts the Enterprise and is like, whoa, bros, did you feel that? Because, we totally did, and we're worried about it. Gravity and time and shit just, stopped existing for a second. Can you, fix it for us? Invasion status and all that. Okay, thanks, love you, bye! And the cherry on top of this nightmare day is their dilithium crystals have been drained, so their warp drive is not looking too hot. Cool. Kirk tries to figure out what the hell is happening by interrogating the man with the terrible beard in sickbay, who is less than sane. He goes on and on about how his enemy is down on the planet and he has to kill him to save everything. Kirk is like, Spock, confirm. And Spock is like, nah, son, this man is a liar. There ain't no man on this planet. But then, Newsflash, read all about it. There are two men fighting each other and there's blue light. Extra, extra. Turns out this weirdo, aka Lazarus, groan, is fading in and out of the universe, encountering a lookalike enemy that he must kill, kill, kill. With the Enterprise's dilithium, of course. But Kirk is like, come on, no, we're not doing that. I'm not giving you our dilithium. So Lazarus obviously steals the crystals. But then he blames it on his nemesis. Classic. Kirk is puzzled by Lazarus. One minute he is wounded and insane, then the next minute he is strong and rational. Cue Bones screaming in the background, being like, I've been saying this! After a little wibbly science maneuvering, both Kirk and Spock realize that the answer is that Lazarus is actually, dun dun dun, two different people! One in this universe that is insane, and the other in an antimatter universe that is rational. I am the anti-monitor. Spock hypothesizes that if the two Lazarus touch each other outside of the dimensional corridor, they would annihilate both universes. Lazarus, the bad one, I think, takes his stolen crystals and beams down to the planet to assist in his holy cause. Kirk follows, but there is a time machine or something, and he slips into an antimatter universe. I don't know, stop thinking about it, it's dumb. Anyways, while there, Kirk has a convo with the antimatter Lazarus, who is like, sorry for the whole trouble. I did, in fact, steal the Enterprise's dilithium, but I did it to prevent him from using his dilithium to invade the antimatter universe. The good Lazarus informs Kirk that his people in the future, I guess, I don't know, there's some time travel, unclear, believe two universes existed, and when this matter counterpart learned about his existence, he went insane and became obsessed with destroying him. Awkward. But hey, that's the bad news. The good news is if you help me, I'll trap us both in this dimensional corridor forever to protect both universes. Well, you know there is nothing our girl loves more than a noble self-sacrifice. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, I guess he has some like philosophical, moral thoughts about it first, but then he's like, bada bing, bada boom, push, you're trapped for all time. Now blow up that cute ass ship, fire phasers, universe is saved. Now, back to the moral philosophical quandary. What of Lazarus? What of Lazarus? The end.
Oh my God.
How did you like this episode?
I fucking loved this episode.
Oh my God, I hate you.
I loved this episode. It's so stupid.
Did you love this episode because we set the bar so low? Like, do you think you would have had as positive of a reaction to it if Mia and Bobby were not like, look, girl, this episode blows. We hate it. We never want to watch it. It's super skippable. No redeemable parts.
I don't know. I think I still would have loved it. It's
Erin was like cackling anytime the nebula screen newsflash fight in the blue light thing happened. Erin cackled like a maniac. You can't hear her right now because she's laughing so hard she can't breathe. Like that.
It's so funny.
It's bad.
That's why it's good. That is part of what I like about it. See, I think I would have liked it anyway because even if you hadn't set the bar super low, even if you had told me this is the greatest piece of camp cinema you'll ever see presented on television, I don't know that I still wouldn't have been like prepared for how much I was gonna love this episode. It's just so ridiculous and it's bad in so many ways that I thought it was delightful. And like the fact that, okay, so part of this is that I've been watching a lot of 1950s, 1960s TV. And so the way that like commercials and the way that TV and television was presented is just so different than today. Right. Like everything was allowed to take so much more time and True. Like the fact that they're having these like very long theoretical discussions about time is kind of amazing. Like the fact that they devote so much time to talking about
these
time. These
writers heard the words antimatter and they said, ooh, 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 we eating tonight.
Yeah, like they just really dove in on it and it's taken so seriously in a way that like now watching it from way removed I find absolutely delightful, and also as like a cultural artifact I find super fascinating, like that this is the kind of thing that they were like, yeah, we'll absolutely give airtime to this for like 4 solid minutes to just talk about theoretical time travel. I found it delightful. And like I noticed this at the very beginning of the episode. This is clearly an episode that they were like, hello, executives. We shoot this in Technicolor. It's because everything is super bright. All the primary colors are like set up next to each other so that they all pop. Like, that is clearly the point of these very bizarre space sequences, which have clearly been, I'm seeing updated versions of.
Right.
There's no way they looked like that in the 60s. But the idea, too, that they like probably just played like Fantasia style flashing colors and lights is so delightful to me. Like, I wish I could see that. I want to see the like non-updated version because I feel like I would also really like that. It's just the whole episode feels so camp in a way that I just really like. I made a list. I'm gonna bring my list out.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
Your list that you scribbled all over because you were laughing so hard?
I laughed so hard I accidentally drew all over my notes. Okay, so one of the things that I liked about this episode is that it's like a parody of everything that you only hear about Star Trek when you don't actually watch it. So like me at the beginning of Extracts talking about Star Trek, this is the kind of episode I would have described. So like you've got a bunch of weird, unnecessary long pauses from Shatner for no reason right up top.
He was being real philosophical.
So
But also, they
philosophical.
were like really bored in space.
Well, the like philosophical stuff wasn't quite as bad, but at the very beginning of the episode, he's doing the like Christopher Walken style pauses where it's like, why are we doing this? Like, it felt like a weird take that got used, having watched so much other Kirk.
And been like, wait, is he okay at acting? Actually?
Yeah, it felt like an aberration to be like, oh, this is the thing that people saw, and we're like, you do this all the time. So there's that. There's a ton of flinging, which I love, documented love the flinging. There's a lot of wild, very colorful, like spacey sequences, which is like what you think when you think original Star Trek. There's a bunch of silly outdoor stuff, which is also very...
Oh, slip! I fell off of this cliff. No red shirt was killed, though.
Yes, there are a ton of red shirts though, and you feel like they're ready to die at any moment.
You're just waiting.
Yeah,
When will this bitch slip off a cliff?
Go on, go. There's a bunch of like very retro looking space stuff, which is what you like culturally associate TOS with as well. And there's like a very silly villain. Like ultimately, if you get down to it, he is wacky as hell.
Yeah.
Like he's flip flopping around
Every time
like,
he
whacking against the wall,
blips in and out of the universe, it's just like
it's so ridiculous. Like it's exactly what I would have described a Star Trek episode to you, having never seen one in my life. And I find that delightful. Now, having seen so much more of it, I appreciate that this is clearly where some of that like tropey stuff comes from. And knowing again that it's like an aberration from the rest of the series, I find incredible and really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
So funny. Even though we have watched episodes that are worse in an age well sense, or this character is acting really out of character, or like whatever, there's usually something that I can find. Even people say that like we'll get to it next season, or final season, when we talk about Spock's brain. People are like, that's the worst episode. That's worst episode. It is terrible, but it is terrible in this like camp fun way. And there's like good bones moments and stuff. So like I don't hate it, but like Alternative Factor is like one that is I think the only one I actually like skip because I find it to be so boring. They're like, we don't got Scotty, we don't got Sulu. Uhura's not really doing anything. Kirk and Spock and Bones are like very like shades of their actual characters. Also, I just think it's funny that you love this because I don't like it. Bobby doesn't like it. Zach Hanlon from the AV Club said it is baffling, unrewarding, and poorly paced. A ranking of every episode from Hollywood.com placed this 77th out of 79. Den of Geek ranked this the 6th worst Star Trek episode of the original series. And in 2019, CNET ranked this as the 9th worst episode based on actual audience rankings from the 50th anniversary Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. So it's not just like me. It is literally like everybody's like, this episode is trash.
You know what people are not doing? Taking enough drugs before they watch this episode.
They all need to be fucking high.
I do think that my gummy hit like right as this episode started.
Right as the first like nebula flash happened.
Legitimately, I was like, all right, here we go, having a nice little gummy trip. And then it was like, oh girl, get on board, here we go.
Also, this episode only aired once in 1967, so like they didn't like re-air it because like people loved it or whatever. They were like, oh, one and done. And like, I mean, I'm sure it was in syndication or whatever, but they were like, no, we will not be playing this one again. Whoops-a-doodle.
So funny to me.
I mean, it's not like
seem that bad.
it's not offensive or anything. It's just
It's the seven fight sequences in the corridor. Two of them are short.
Dimensional corridor.
Two of them are short, and then there is
Wait, did you count there
Yes,
seven?
I fucking did. Are you kidding? By the third one,
Are you
I was
counting-
like, how many?
Are you counting the one where Kirk just falls to the ground?
Yes, that's one of
Okay.
the short ones. There's that one, and then there was one other right after that. The next one of the two time travelers was pretty short. And then there's like a fake out one in the sick bay. But there are five full length
Long.
sequences. So long.
God, especially the second one is like half the episode, I swear to God.
It just keeps going and going and going. That's why I loved it. Because it was like, that is what felt so camp about it. That like, every time you think, surely they won't do this again.
That feels like, we ran out of words in the script.
Yes, it does.
We gotta do something.
And it is just so funny to me that they were like, you know what we're gonna do? Not great movement in negative. Throw it up on the screen and tilt it. Done.
It doesn't even have like good music. It's just like
strange. It's so fucking weird.
oh man. Do you want to know a weird fact about this?
Absolutely.
So the guy that plays Lazarus, we'll learn about him. I don't know anything about him. Bobby will tell us. But it was originally supposed to be John Drew Barrymore, but he failed to show up for filming without any explanation. So they recasted this dude. And then the producers of Star Trek filed a formal grievance with the Screen Actors Guild, which suspended Barrymore's membership for 6 months, preventing him from working. The Star Trek people said, girl, you do not fuck with us.
He was like a wild alcoholic by then, too.
I'm sure.
So he's like,
But
Star Trek, get fucked.
But I love that.
I'm out.
I love that they like filed formal complaints. They said, this is against Starfleet regulations.
You know what we don't have in the future? Zippers are your bullshit.
To the brig with you. This was novelized in one of those James Blish stories. It's called Reborn. I think it was in Star Trek 10.
Reborn.
This is definitely, I mean, I want to read them all, but this is one that I want to read to like see if he like makes it make sense or if he does
like
anything.
25 pages long.
And it's just like, woo, interdimensional corridor. Also, a thing I've learned about James Blish, because like we always praise him on this podcast, and I was like, man, I should probably like learn more about him to make sure he wasn't like a murderer or
We're into
something.
blackface or something.
Yeah. By all accounts, really good dude, like a pioneer in sci-fi or whatever. This dude who is wrote so many Star Trek novels, did a lot of the novelizations of the actual episodes. He died in 1975. So he did all of this work that like helped the legacy of Star Trek without seeing Star Trek reach the peaks that it has.
That's
Isn't
wild.
that fucking crazy?
That's wild.
That's bananas.
I mean, he's like foundational to that success also.
Yeah.
So that's
Because he
Yeah.
kept it going in novels and stuff, and people were like, "Yeah, we still like this." So like when Star Wars rolled around or whatever, and they were like, "Yeah, we can make a Star Trek movie," there were fans who still liked it. I just think that's like both fascinating and kind of sad.
yeah.
Pouring out for James Blish. I did not learn any terrible things about him, so
Okay, well,
knock
that's
on wood.
good. Thank God.
He's not like a murderer or super into blackface. The two bad ones.
Two pretty bad ones.
Yes. Honestly, that is all of the like apocrypha I have. I know Bobby has some like script nonsense, as there always is script nonsense.
So it's
But,
wouldn't
like-
be Star Trek without it.
One of my Star Trek without it. But yeah, this is just an episode that happened that you happen to like because you are
alone love. I guess.
Yeah, truly. This is your Star Trek 5. I'm so happy you found it.
What's your favorite episode of Star Trek, Erin? Alternative factor.
And everyone's like, so it's the only episode you've seen or what?
I'm just taking a lot of drugs.
Sidebar, I was on set for this like movie doing an extra today, and somebody was dressed like a mobster, but they had a hat that looked very like it would be in place in a piece of action. And so I told 5,000 people about it. I was like, anybody ever seen a piece of the action? And then at Challengers today, somebody was talking about Star Trek, and I don't know how it got brought up, but again, I was like, yeah, you guys want to know about Piece of the Action, the best episode of television ever? So I told at least 15 people about that episode of Star Trek today, totally unprompted. My brain was just like, yeah, I'm gonna
time to evangelize.
Oh, also, sidebar at the end of this, remind me, because I have a Patreon-only story about my insane love of Star Trek and when I can't stop talking about it, even at a very inappropriate time to talk about it.
Fantastic. I'm ready.
Remind me.
All right.
Do you have other things to say about this episode? We got to talk about the beard, at least.
The beard is such a strange choice because, like, I asked you right away, does it become a plot point, or am I just going to be waiting for that and then I'm disappointed? And you told me that it wasn't. But they do give the other guy a different beard, a better beard, which is good, I guess. I'm glad they do something about the beard. It's not just, like, totally crazy for no reason.
To be fair, as we watch things over and over again, we learn new things. I've never noticed that the beards were different, that the insane Lazarus has a scraggly ass beard, and then the sane quote unquote Lazarus has like a slightly nicer scraggly ass beard.
Yeah.
So like
it's, and I like kind of understand the logic, because if he had
he
totally
combs his nasty beard where the other one doesn't.
if you had one with a beard and one without, they would have immediately known that he was a different person. And so, like, the logic is there.
I feel like
it's just
the
like,
logical choice was to not glue this beard to this man's face. Like, that feels like the logical choice. What is this supposed to be, a weird beard from the future?
Well, like, they're also
they
supposed
just
to
say
be,
time
like,
travel.
And they're also supposed to be, like, identical, so they do both need something, I guess.
They have their face. That's the part that's identical. They're wearing the same clothes and they have the same face. What do you mean they need something identical?
Fair enough. It's fine. I don't care about this episode enough to argue about that.
Okay.
Oh, man. That's so funny. I really did enjoy this episode. I think even if I had not taken a gummy before I watched this, I still would have really enjoyed it, actually.
I knew that you smoked, but I did not realize that you took a gummy, and now that makes a lot more sense of the wild cackling that was happening. I was like, damn, I'm glad she's having a good time, but what the fuck is that?
So funny.
Well, I'm happy for you. I'm happy that...
so unexpected. I think, honestly, that's what it was. It's so unexpected, if you've never watched it before, how many fucking times they go to that sequence, and it just never ends.
It is a never-ending sequence. That is
so
very
funny.
true.
So fucking funny.
Synopsis showdown.
Yes, let me find it in my notes.
In your scraggly ass notes. The universe almost blinks out of existence because two ding-dongs with bad beards can't keep their hands off each other. Would be a shame if we save the universe by trapping them in an alternate dimension to fight forever. JK, unless...
A madman fights his identical parallel universe twin 7 times across the space tunnel. Kirk and Spock have a lot of sciencey feelings about it.
Both facts.
Yeah,
we did it.
That's true.
Good at our jobs.
Good at our jobs.
Are you ready for Mulder? It's me.
Fine, sure, whatever.
Who interviewed them? I did. Together or separate? Together. Why? Well, then you have no way of determining whether or not the stories are fabricated.
You ready for your summary?
No. I'm sure there are mistakes in here. I wrote this some time ago. Okay, here we go.
Like a week ago.
Whatever. I've written a lot since then.
I've had a lot of gummies since then.
All right, here we go.
Ready. My body is ready.
The show opens and holy shit, it's Ryan Reynolds. He's young, he's sad, and he's full of cum. The teenage girls he's with are about to make his sad feelings about his football teammate.
What the fuck, Erin? What the fuck is wrong with you?
That's what happened.
It's not wrong.
That's what happened.
By surprise.
It's surprising that he just pops out of this episode. It's like, I got a baby face. Hey, you want to bang in my truck?
They ask him to bang, and he's doing it so they don't die.
Is that why he's doing it? Oh my god. the girls he's with are about to make all of his sense.
Start over.
Okay.
You're insane.
I told you I wrote this some time ago, okay? All right. The show opens and holy shit, it's Ryan Reynolds. He's young, he's sad.
He's young, he's sad, and he's full of cum.
And the teenage girls he's with, oh, they're having feelings about it.
Remember when our summaries were like pretty normal? Like the first season, like we tried, and we were like,
This is
here
like
are
a journey
the plot.
in fandom. You start at the beginning and you're like, here it is, everybody. Here's the facts. Here's what happened in the episode. You get to season 3 and you're like, I got a lot of feelings.
Everybody's full of cum.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. Third time's the charm. We can do this. The show opens and holy shit, it's Ryan Reynolds. He's young. Damn, stop.
I'm not even looking at you. Would you like me to make hard eye contact when you say full of cum?
No. Cover your face. I don't have to look at you.
So the ghost makeup.
Yeah. The show opens and holy shit, it's Ryan Reynolds. He's young, he's sad, he's full of cum, and the teenage girls he's with are about to make his sad feelings about his football teammate being mysteriously murdered by Satanists disappear. Parentheses, by fucking his brains out. But just kidding, guys. He's actually like really sad about this, and even though he doesn't really want to have weird BFF sex in the middle of the woods with them, so they like take that the most natural way possible and hang him from a cliff and watch him die while they giggle together. Anyway, Mulder and Scully show up to this funeral and act in maybe some of the most inappropriate ways you could possibly act at a funeral for a teenager, including walking in very late, standing in the back, sort of, and talking very loudly about what bullshit this is in the aisle again of a funeral, and then doing literally nothing when the coffin catches fire. Mulder and Scully interview the two creepy teens, Terry and Margie, who both tell identical tales about a satanic cult which sacrificed a baby and then killed Boom, Ryan Reynolds' hilarious nickname. Scully's like, yeah, sure, that did not happen. And Mulder is like, ugh, Scully, why can't you be cool? And then goes off to do things with the local detective, White, and to talk to a mystical lady who tells them, 1, you better fucking pay me before I tell you about shit, and 2, actually, this is all happening because of a rare planetary alignment between Mercury, Mars, and Uranus. So you know what? Respect astrologers from the small town. She's a small business owner. Paperwork's hard. Meanwhile, Terry and Margie were at cheerleading practice talking about how they both have crushes on Steve, but ick, his girlfriend, also a cheerleader, and ew, problem. One of the basketball players accidentally spills water all over these shitty girls, and so naturally they use their telekinetic powers. Oh, by the way, did you know they had telekinetic powers? They do. To murder him using the auto-closing bleachers. Honestly, a truly horrible way to die. The town then goes on a witch hunt looking for the mass grave supposedly created by the satanic cultists, and instead find an old doctor's bag full of bones. Because the name on the bag is the local pediatrician, they assume it's a child's bones and set off to do some murder. They discover the doctor dressing in drag, which is never addressed. That actually the doctor sold the bag to Terry, and that inside buried is her childhood dog, Mr. Tippy. After this totally normal occurrence, Terry and Margie hold a birthday party, which seems super fun for them and literally no one else, where a Ouija board informs Brenda that she's going to marry Satan, and then she is promptly killed by shattering glass caused by a Bloody Mary game gone horribly awry. Mulder makes a joke about Scully being a bad driver because she's so short, so Scully tells Mulder that he can get absolutely fucked, and she's going back to Washington without him. Mulder and Scully both have horrible little life regressions in their hotel room, and Detective White shows up to tell Mulder that someone put her cat's collar in a box on her doorstep, and so naturally the only thing to do about the possible murder of her cat is to fuck about it. Scully walks in and is like, ugh, disgusting. By the way, Brenda's dead, you fucking sinners. Terry and Margie go to Scott to try to comfort him over the horrible death of his girlfriend, which occurred in one of their homes. But Scott is like, this is fucking weird, and I am not interested in fucking both of you right now. I am sad. Terry, pissed, is ready to murder him, but Margie is still into it and is willing to put more work in, so she leaves in the truck bed and then pops up in his garage and is like, what's up, Scott, you wanna fuck? Mulder goes back to the astrologist lady, who once again says, "Fuck you, pay me. I do not care that the world is falling apart. I do not work for free." She then informs him that not only does this alignment only happen once every 84 years, which is like, honestly, scale of the universe and all, not that rare. It doesn't seem like it doesn't happen that often. And that people like Terry and Margie, with their birthday on January 12th, 1979, have additional alignments, which mean they have phenomenal cosmic powers. There's a GIF in the thing. You should look at them on Patreon. And that's today, and shit is about to hit the fan. Terry follows Margie and Scott back to Scott's house, where she confronts them in the garage, and oopsie poopsies, they accidentally murder Scott with a garage door spring. Margie's like, well, I'm a rat. Bye! And goes to Mulder and tells him that Terry did all of the murders, while Terry is like, fuck you, Margie, and goes to Scully and tells her that Margie is responsible for the murders. Mulder and Scully bring them back to this police station, and shit absolutely goes fucking Carrie-style haywire, with furniture shaking and guns going off. And so Mulder's brilliant solution is to lock them in a closet together, and somehow that works. The town comes and takes one look at the two girls crying in the closet, declares that it was Satan, and everyone moves on. The end.
A dimensional closet corridor.
What did you think of this episode?
I like that.
It's funny, I think of this episode as a very weird episode, because the first time you watch it, it's like, what the fuck is going on? And then immediately, once you know what's happening, it's like, oh.
I didn't think it was like that complex to follow. I think you're like, oh, okay, but like once the lady, Zarinka?
Which one? What?
The astrologist.
Zarinka.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay, yes.
Once Zarinka is like, yeah, this is what's happening, and Mulder's like, oh, do I believe in it? Yep, I do. I do believe in astrology now. Yep, 100%. Yeah, I had a moment, and now it is the guiding tenet of my life. Once she explains it, and then she's like, 1979, them bitches.
I'll call the police.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
She was amazing. Also, I think that it was revealed in a way that makes sense cinematically. It does wrap up. It does kind of make sense how the town that got all in satanic panic and like rumor where they see the girls, they would be like, yep, 100%, that was Satan. We're good.
And then they just move on.
We're good, because they don't want to deal with all the consequences and stuff, right? Like, that makes sense. The only thing that didn't make sense is the moment that you open the bag of bones, you're like, this is an animal head. This is not a baby head.
Well, it's the mass hysteria of it.
But Scully, like, that's an animal head.
Yeah.
Everybody, nope, this is a dog. Maybe a cat, but I'm pretty sure a dog. Not a baby. Everybody chill.
Not a baby.
Not a baby. Yeah, so I thought the plot made sense. And I think that for how silly and over the top it is, I think the acting is really good in this. I think the two girls are really good at being creepy teenagers, and I think they balance each other really well. I think that Zarinka is amazing. A+, 10s across the board. And even though it has some weird throwaway stuff of the doctor being a crossdresser or whatever, the town don't run him out for being a crossdresser.
That's true. They're
like, yeah, whatever, fine. This is fine. Did you murder this kid? Which is
where's the babies at?
Appropriate. If you these are not the same thing or whatever. And it does make, the only thing that I guess doesn't make a lot of sense about you can just chalk it up to the stars and planets were making people act grouchy and shit, is that Scully's being an uber bitch and Mulder's being uber annoying.
Yes.
And even Detective White is wow, I feel so weird right now. Let's fuck, I guess. I do love that Mulder's oh yeah, I only like this in theory. I don't, can you get off?
Get you another room?
Actually, you know what? No, thank you. Stop touching me. You're not wearing my favorite perfume. If you were, maybe, but you're not. So please stop touching me.
Which, if she's not wearing the favorite perfume, and
was the
Scully
doctor.
wasn't, it had to have been Scully who was
100%.
wearing it. I've never realized that before.
Yeah. That's the joke. It's the doctor.
I've never realized
He's
that before.
inappropriate time, somebody's wearing a scent I do not. And the doctor's like, nice to know I have good taste.
Do you have good taste if you attract
that's
Mulder?
true. That's true. Fair. This doctor doesn't know. He just sees a tall, vaguely
He's
handsome
he's
guy.
handsome. Okay, all right. You're from the FBI.
Also, ACAP forever or whatever, especially the FBI. But I do love that they are oh, cops. Oh, God.
Mulder has the hardest fuck the feds energy of anyone
they're
ever.
yeah, we're feds. But we fight aliens and vampires and shit. So do we even count? You know?
Do they count? Are they regular citizens and we are the bad guys because we're the cops fighting them, or are we exempt? We're
right.
ex FBI.
Yeah, we're we fight ghosts, and you're racist.
That is often the problem. You're right. That's true.
No, not this town. This town was like
Weirdly
surprisingly multicultural and accepting. It's just like not, they were just like really concerned about sand.
They were having really bad mass hysteria.
To be fair, it wasn't just mass hysteria of like in the 80s of people being like Dungeons and Dragons. They're like there were like actual murders happening in the town.
There was like actual witchcraft happening adjacent to this.
Yeah, in the like history of like mass hysteria, like nothing is actually happening and people are just like making shit up and like whatever. Whereas this, it's like Scully was being like, ugh, this is all fake. And it's like, yeah, but that coffin did start on fire and these kids are dying. So it is like different.
And the like repetition of that happening with Scully too, where she's like, this is always fake. It never happens. There's never any proof. And then like immediately it's like, well, bitch, what do you think about this? Like, I think that that's a very clever structure inside of it too. And like part of what the way that this episode was written is as like a direct answer to a lot of the critiques that had been happening up till this point in season 3 too, of like, why does Mulder always drive? And like Chris Carter made a joke about Scully's little feet at a convention. And so that became this line that then becomes
ice
like
cold.
Like
that's one of the meanest things Mulder has ever said.
It's very mean. And like,
it's really mean.
Yes. And like this energy that they have too is also a direct answer to so many fans being like, but we want them to kiss, please. Can they kiss, please? And Chris Carter was like, double deuces. See you in 4 more seasons.
Yeah, except for, okay, even if he's like, oh, I don't want them to kiss or whatever, everything that the way that she is acting is she's acting very jealous.
She's
so
super jealous.
That's just like throwing gasoline on it.
And
being
also when
like,
she's like, hey, I'm going back to Washington.
Gasoline?
Yes, exactly. That's what
Like
Mulder
this?
does with gasoline.
Probably. Honestly, he's probably like jerking off with gasoline. It's an audio medium. I was doing a jerk off motion.
We're live streaming.
Nobody is watching.
I know. I like that this episode, when you look at it in the context of the whole series, like you can see the seeds for bad blood in this episode, that like the aggressive nature of both of the characters. And then I also feel like you can kind of see like Hollywood AD level metas of it too, where it's the creators making a comment on the way that the fans feel about the characters, and they're like using the scripts as they get later in the series to like kind of directly comment on that. It's like, we've talked about that a lot on this show, that X-Files is one of those weird shows from the beginning of the internet, and this like interactive nature. And this is an episode that really highlights that. And in some ways it's, I bet most of the people who made this episode talk about it being not a super fun experience of an episode to make. And
being the like producers and directors or the actors?
The writers and the producers and the producers. And I think part of that is because it is this like answer to this fan service. And so I bet as somebody who worked on the show where it feels like you're working within these weird constraints that are made by your audience, it would be very hard. But again, it's like a removed audience member 30 years later. Delightful.
It's really interesting because like we talked before that some of the producers of the X-Files are also the producers of Supernatural, because I feel like there are later episodes of the X-Files that does fan service or like responsive fan service in like a less like ha 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 fuck you way, but in more like, yeah, we acknowledge you, we like you, like we're and Supernatural does the same thing. There's like an episode that's like ha ha ha, like kind of fuck the fans, and then one later on that's like, yep, this is just like fucking crack cocaine for you, here you go.
Yeah,
which I feel like the X-Files also has a similar trajectory.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, sidebar, fuck Chris Carter, da boom.
So stupid.
This fucking idiot.
Dartboard name. Fucking asshole.
This little baby face Ryan Reynolds.
Oh God, this episode was written by Chris Carter, because obviously it was written by fucking Chris Carter. It's directed by Rob Bowman, who said he was not a fan of this episode. I'm going to read this whole quote because I thought it was funny. The show proved to be much more difficult than I anticipated, and there wasn't enough time to shoot the show properly because we were so close to the Christmas break. I felt extremely pressured and frustrated, although there were things in it that I loved, particularly the banter between Mulder and Scully. But overall, I thought the show was very oblique. I don't feel like the characters ever knew what was going on, and I don't think it was all that cool that kids were murdering people, and I didn't feel like it was shooting an episode of The X-Files, and I think I let Chris Carter down a bit.
I think Chris Carter let you down a bit.
Yeah, I feel like that, because this is before Chris Carter had directed an episode too. So he says later, like, once I directed an actual episode I had written, I realized how hard I had made it for
I realized that I'm the asshole
that
here.
I actually am horrible to direct because I write in ways that are fucking impossible to film. And so I feel like, yeah, Chris Carter let you down here, Rob Bowman. It's cool.
That's so funny.
The name of the episode, Syzygy, is the name of a straight line astrological alignment of 3 or more celestial bodies in a gravitational system. So, of course that's what it fucking means.
Nerds.
Fucking nerds. The name of Grover Cleveland Alexander High School, the setting for a lot of the action, where all of the shit takes place. It's reference to a Jeopardy question that David Duchovny got wrong when he was on the show. So it's just Chris Carter being like, fuck you, David.
You know what? Respect it. He could be brought down a peg.
Yes. This is why he is who he is. These are the things that formed that.
Him getting that question wrong on Jeopardy really.
Truly like lightning started right then, right in his little brain. How can I make these children unionize and then crush their dreams?
Dude, no, Erin was talking about listening to the Patreon episode about Truly Like Lightning, an insane book that David Duchovny wrote.
Insane. The scene with the Keystone Cops on TV was originally supposed to be Clockwork Orange playing on all the TVs. Very different tone.
Very different vibe.
Very different vibe. The reason that they use Keystone Cops is because it was much less expensive.
Yeah, 100%.
And way better. And
especially if you're filming like a kind of comedy episode.
Exactly. Like, if they were shooting this as like a straight horror, yeah, Clockwork Orange totally makes sense in that because it's got that like creepy vibe, especially if it's
girlfriend.
Like, yeah, like that could work in that scene. But Keystone Cops is such a funny thing to use there.
Yeah.
Like, it just works so much better. And basically everyone afterwards was like, hindsight, way better. That was way better, I think. And like, yeah, that
is one of those
better.
Constraints like improves the end product.
Mm-hmm, totally. David Duchovny later explained that the show's comedic episodes were generally more like ludicrous than others, and saying there's the X-Files of the standalone, and then there's the X-Files of the mythology, and then there are the comedic X-Files as well, in which the characters are really not quite the same characters that we know, which I feel like is a good observation on like this episode in particular too. Like that's the whole point of the comedy is that they're acting in this way, and
they're acting in like a character for a reason. It's because the planets are a wackadoodle.
Yeah, and like that. That's like the same kind of constraint that happens in like Arcadia, where they're not acting as their general selves, and there is a reason for that, but that comedy hits in a very different way than say like Amazing Malini, which is very funny, but is them acting in accordance with their own characters, and so it's a totally different kind of comedy. Yeah. So I thought that was as esoteric and full of his own shit as David Duchovny.
Oh, you mean like the fucking end monologue that was just like. I honestly, I know that it was written in Chris Carter, but it does definitely feel like after having read several of David Duchovny's book, it definitely feels like they were like, David, just riff.
You got this, David.
You know, you have feelings about the universe.
Just talk a little bit.
Let it go.
Just pretend you're talking to Chris Carter. Okay.
Yeah,
I can do that. You may be surprised to know that the reception for this was mixed.
No, I feel like that makes sense.
Yes, no, it totally makes sense. Entertainment Weekly said it's another uproarious send-up, this time of teen venom, B-movie paranoia, and our agents are playfully restrained rapport. Which, like, yeah, we were talking about this before we started recording, Bobby and I were, that this movie is a send-up, but it's like...
Of like Carrie and like 80s shit?
Yeah, and Heather's, but it's like, it doesn't hit quite hard enough to like really feel like a satirical send-up. But once you look at the whole thing, it's like, okay, yes, this is clearly what the point was. It just doesn't...
Well, and it has a lot of commentary on actual satanic panic. And I'm assuming that some of the facts that they were just like exposition spitting for funsies at the funeral were like real facts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or adjacent real facts.
Adjacent to real facts.
Or real facts.
Quote, quote, real facts. Yes. On the driving argument, one of Mulder and Scully's funniest exchanges that was often quoted as, and like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure, fine, whatever.
I was just never sure your little feet could reach the pedal.
Right. I also said when we were watching this, I love that she gets in the seat and has to immediately adjust from his long legs, and he crams himself into her seat, does not adjust it. It's like, I'll sit like this. Work. I will sit like this all the way back to Washington. I don't give a fuck. Like, I love that. I think that's also excellent character work. 100%. I really enjoyed that. Emily Vanderwerf of the AV Club said this was an entertaining hour that never rises to the level of the other episodes like Humbug or War of the Carthagers, which you haven't seen. Well, we're saving that one for season 4. It's one of the
But we've seen Humbug.
Yes, we have seen Humbug. It's one of the last Morgan ones. That's why we saved it for next season.
We gotta have some good things.
Yeah,
in
well,
season 2.
season 4.
Wow, 4.
Whatever, who cares? She said that Syzygy felt like an attempt by Chris Carter to try and emulate the writing style of Darren Morgan's scripts, and that he did it without success because, like, Darren Morgan has a very specific kind of humor. That's that idea that David Duchovny was talking about the characters sitting sort of outside of themselves, like the Freak Show one, the Carnival, where like they are themselves, but they're in this same kind of Syzygy way, sitting like just sort of outside of them.
Right.
And so I think when you look at it that way, and this also, the episode right before this was a Darren Morgan one, and so I think it also is really hampered by the fact that it's like, oh, here's how it's done by the person you're trying to emulate, and then here's this like sort of pale comparison to it. But when it's viewed on its own as a solo episode, I think it is a lot better, and you can see how that like send up of Darren Morgan's style actually works quite well.
Totally.
But again, back to back, I
But
bet
also,
it would be like
nobody's Darren Morgan.
Right, exactly. Right? Yeah, like it would be very difficult to be as good as Darren Morgan because his style is so specific and so tailored to these characters. And so, like, this works in some ways, but it's just not a Darren Morgan. I found this quote also very funny. Every time you think the episode has figured out a way to plant its foot firmly in comedic territory, there's a horribly judged moment of drama like Mulder's final monologue.
That's fair. Yeah, it is really uneven in that way. Because, like, I would say it feels 75% like a comedic episode, but it has, like, a hard 25% that feels serious.
Yes. So, some of the criticism is that it feels like the humor exists inside a vacuum.
Yeah.
And so there's, like, this very serious, like, cult thing happening, and then these very funny pockets inside of it.
I found bones. She found bones.
Yeah, and like the fact that the person leading the mob is the high school principal, like these moments are very fun. And again, the cross-dressing pediatrician with no follow-up. And like, I think the way that Darren
Not that
Morgan...
cross-dressing is like inherently funny.
No,
yeah.
but like the way that it's written inside of this, I think that could work inside of a Darren Morgan script in the way that it doesn't work inside of this one, where that feels very random and out of nowhere, where in a Darren Morgan script, I feel like it would feel more like, of course he's a cross-dresser. Of course he does this.
Yeah.
It's like in Small Potatoes when the dad is like, want to see my tail? And you're like, Jesus Christ. Like,
but yeah, I do.
It fits in that like same kind of way.
What a weird thing to ask. But yes, please show me your tail.
I actually want that. Chris Carter said he was somewhat disappointed in the reaction that the episode received because, you know, it wasn't a Darren Morgan and people were disappointed. But one of the nice things that came out of this was the sure fine whatever phrase, which became like a lasting thing that was attached
I was
to
going
the
to ask
X-Files.
about that.
Oh, yeah. People really, really grasp onto that.
Is it a thing that shows up again, or is it really just in this episode?
I think it's just in this episode. I'm pretty sure it doesn't actually come back.
I love that. And things where like a random quote from like an early episode is one that has this lasting legacy.
There was a t-shirt company in San Francisco that printed sure fine whatever t-shirts, and like you can still get those. And then now obviously there are a lot more companies that make them because of, you know, the internet. Yeah, exactly. But I love that there was a company that was like, yes, there's a market out here for these. It's the 90s. Let's fucking go. Like, I love that. I think it's awesome. It's again another really good example of the way that the like fan culture is really starting to churn around this series, and the way that like there is such a give and take between the writers of the show, the people who are acting and working on the show, the audience of the show, and the people who create the merch around the show, which then like leads back to the writers. It's just a very interesting ecosystem, and like what a weird episode to be such a good like little observation deck of that. So that's it. That's all I have to say about this episode.
I liked it.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. This wound up being a more cohesive episode than I was expecting.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit in common. Whatever.
There are a lot of things in common. These both could have
We
been...
have a whole part about that.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Would you like to do a synopsis?
Yeah, let's do it. Mulder and Scully work on their own interpersonal bullshit while two girls nearly carry a football team.
The stars align to give two high school girls carry-level superpowers, but only until their birthday's over, because that's when Sane has to go back to hell or whatever. Pretty white girls getting away with murder? America. Also, I guess Mulder and Scully were there. I mostly just talked about them. Synopsis. Are you ready for a Deep Throat submission, love?
I am. Tell me about these people.
But what of Lazarus? What of Lazarus?
Okay. Starting off with the alternative factor. 106.4, the alternative factor, Elgin Rock Radio. This was written by Don Ingalls, who knew Gene Roddenberry back from when they were both cops. Also wrote the episode of Private Little War. Like, I could keep writing out details about him, but I think we know enough
Private
about
Little
him.
War sucks.
Just from those two details, I think we know enough about him.
He was a cop and he
That's
wrote
fine.
Private Little War. This dude
Oh, we're good.
sucks.
That's it. That's all we need to know about this dude. This was directed by Gerd Oswald, who also directed The Conscience of the King, which fuck.
That is our season 3 closer because I needed to close with a banger.
Spoilers, it is a banger.
And it's also really important in fandom.
Oswald was also the most prominent director in the classic original run of The Twilight Zone. He did 14 episodes in that. And cool enough, he did a bunch of other TV too, but his last 2 credits are from the 1985 Twilight Zone reboot.
Nice.
So like he came back to it right before he ended his career. I think that's great. Little details like that are great for me. Okay. So let's start to get into why this episode was such a fucking mess. The
Unless
original,
you're Erin and you love it.
unless you're Erin, you
Love
love
a
it.
mess.
Well, Erin knows it's a mess, but she also loves a mess.
Love a mess.
The original script called for a romantic entanglement between Lazarus and Charlene Masters, that cool black engineer that you said, oh, does she come back? I hope she comes back. We hope she does more. She was supposed to be a huge part of this episode. Well, Gene Roddenberry looked at this and looked at Space Seed and said, this is the same plot. We can't do this twice in a row, where a crew member falls in love with a super powerful but tortured and evil.
And also, I just don't know how that would even make sense because this dude is literally losing his mind.
Right.
He's like not
Right.
being suave, even though like other dude, like
He doesn't want to stay there.
right, it makes sense in Space Seed because he's like, I am all that is man. Look at my chest pecs.
Right.
I am Khan. Like
I mean, okay, so line up Ricardo Montalban
and what
this guy.
Richard Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah. And be like, one is hot and one has this like shit glued to his face.
So they gut most of the original script for that. Also, as Stell mentioned, John Barrymore failed to show up for this. Well, he just didn't show up
Yeah.
on the days that they were shooting. So Gerd Oswald decides to shoot scenes on that first day that didn't involve his character, which is why everything else is kind of disjointed as well. And then on the second day, it was decided to either shut down the production and scrap the episode overall or find an emergency replacement. I'll go ahead and go into this now just because it fits. Robert Brown ended up being that replacement. He's an ex-Navy guy who studied under Strasberg post his service, but he was literally dragged into the set right after he agreed to play the role on his 40th birthday.
What a terrible birthday.
He recounted the filming to be very tight and tense. He shot all of his scenes in 2 days.
Oh my God.
A mess.
He's not in a small portion of this
Yeah.
episode
He's in most
either.
of the episode.
Them, he, for given what he had, like the script and stuff, like he does a pretty decent job. You can tell the difference between the two Lazarus, like,
Yeah.
especially if he was just literally pulled off the street like you. All right, get in here.
He got this job because right before Trek started, he did a pilot with William Shatner where okay, so it was a pilot about a Swede and an Irishman who emigrate to America. Brown played the Irishman, which means William Shatner played the Swede. Hold in your mind the music of William Shatner with a Swedish accent. Just
God.
give yourself that enjoyment for yourself. I'll get more into his career later, a couple more things, but it was, yeah, he was given a very short stick and tried to do his best with it.
Yeah,
It's fucking rough.
He's not even bad in this episode.
No,
it's just
he's
a
not.
Bad
It's
episode.
just, it's a bad episode.
Sure, high, I guess.
Also, where the fuck Scotty and Sulu? There's no reason in the script
Yeah.
given
It's
that
weird
they're
that
not
Scotty's
there.
not there.
It's not like a shooting disparagency or anything.
Green
Like
Berets
they
thing or
just weren't
something.
in the script.
They were like, John Barrymore's not here. We're going on.
Funny.
The footage of the two Lazaruses fighting was created by filming 2 stuntmen fighting in a smoke-filled room with orange and purple walls, then double exposing its color negative footage over the astronomical photograph of the Trivid Nebula.
The butthole now.
The butthole nebula. I said it looked like a butthole. That's my fault. This states that by actual count, meaning I think there might be one at the beginning before,
Oh,
the
yeah.
actual universe change is 8.
Oh, my God. So ridiculous.
Which Stella's,
I guess I
it's
didn't
got to
count
be
the original one.
It's got to be at least a third of the runtime of
It
this
has
episode.
to be. It's
So
so
long.
long.
So long.
And a couple of them are long.
Interesting enough, a still image in the closing credits of The Squire of Gothos shows the corridor between two universes unaltered by the negative effects. That's just William Shatner standing ankles deep in fog in a weird orange and purple hallway.
Naturally.
So I don't usually go through errors for episodes, but this episode is a mess, so let's get at it. In the opening scene, Spock describes the planet as having oxygen, hydrogen, atmosphere, which is actually flammable as fuck. Like, the smallest spark might ignite the fucking atmosphere and the whole planet would explode.
Exploded.
So young science. Although Masters is referred to as a lieutenant in engineering. That's the awesome black engineer. She wears a blue uniform.
She doesn't have any stripes, and I've noticed that every time. It drives me nuts.
She wears a blue uniform of the sciences section, and it has no rank stripes.
Yeah.
So once again, a mess.
It drives me nuts.
There are a couple of weird, unique things to this episode. One of them is the angle that they shoot the Enterprise from when it shoots phasers down to destroy Lazarus's ship. It's the only time you see that in the whole series. As well as it only shooting a single phaser beam at a time, it's usually the two that come to a point. So, we'll get into some casting stuff for this now. That's Christian Patrick as the transporter chief who just gets two-shotted after his one line. This is his only credited film role. He got pwned so hard, he got pwned out of Hollywood. That's Arch Whitting as the assistant engineer, a.k.a. Lanky Janky Jonathan, the weird, creepy guy who leans over both of them at the table. His most notable role was playing Sparks on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the TV series. Also guested on Mannix, The Fugitive, and more. We briefly see Richard Durr as Barstow.
Where he's like, "Can you fix this? Bye."
Oh, we might be getting invaded. Also, you're alone. Fix this. Bye.
Oh, so we're big. Yep. Bye.
He also plays Admiral Fitzgerald in The Mark of Gideon. So, this is another one where they got these two guys to play these high-ranking flag characters, but had them play different ones.
That's weird. You
Yeah.
should just have the same.
They could just have been the same characters. Richard Durr was also in When Worlds Collide, Men at Large, Castle in the Desert, the 1948 Joan of Arc, Three in the Attic, The Drowning Pool, American Gigolo, and Firefox. He did a lot outside of just being these weird two short characters in Star Trek. That's Janet McLachlan as Charlene Masters, who was supposed to have a bigger part in this fucking episode. She received a degree in psychology from the city of New York's Hunter College in 1955, and then was a high-level executive assistant.
Hell yeah.
Before starting in acting. She started on the YMCA stage, to local theater, to TV. She was a contracted Universal player. Had a great prominent TV guest acting career in the 60s and 70s. The 80s saw her land regular roles on shows like Archie Bunker's Place, Santa Barbara, Cagney and Lacey. The 90s, she did a couple of Murder, She Wrote, LA Law, NYPD Blue, and her final TV performance was an episode of Alias. So, she had a really long career.
Alias with Jennifer Garner and her wigs.
And J.J. Abrams is Alias. And then that's Robert Brown as Lazarus and also anti-Lazarus, I guess. If they were
Lazarus.
two characters. And what about Lazarus?
What about Lazarus?
What then?
So I told you a little bit about him before. Before this, he stars in... Oh, no, I'm sorry. So directly after this, he stars in the show Here Come the Brides, which ran from 68 to 70, and did guest roles from the late 50s all the way to 1994, with his only notable film role being Roger Corman's Tower of London in 62, which stars Vincent Price as Richard of Gloucester. Yes, this is a more haunted version of Richard III, and it's dope. It's dope.
Wait, have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just thought you were like,
Yes.
I like the premise is dope.
I leaned in on Vincent Price movies at some point and saw that
that
one. 'Cause
tracks.
it was like
Yes.
Roger Corman, Vincent Price. These are two names that you know. You might as well just watch this.
Roger Corman, the guy that did Little Shop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same guy.
The original Little Shop? The
Yeah.
one that fucks?
Spooky 30s plug. Moving on to on the writer-director side, just Carter and Bowman, just making TV. Just doing a try.
Around.
Just doing a try. And who can blame them, you know?
Sex filing around.
Just guys.
Just
Guys being dudes.
Surfing and whatever. Playing darts.
This is the first episode in which Dana Scully is seen smoking. This ends up usually, it only happens maybe like 2 more times, and it's usually a sign that either reality is being distorted some way or shit has completely hit the fan. Like, they don't bring that out very often, but when they do, it's like, oh, this is a real one.
Well, you've also already seen Beyond the Sea, too, where there's that flashback memory the prisoner has of her when she was like 16, where her dad caught her smoking cigarettes and made her smoke the whole pack. And so it's also been like established that she doesn't smoke. And so to see her smoking in this moment is like a really big deal.
And she is angry smoking
She's
too.
so mad.
Pacing around the fucking room. There's a few references to this episode in the X-Files video game, the point and click one. The motel in the game is the Comedy Motel, the name of the town. And the lead character whose name is Craig Wilmore, is mentioned as one of the basketball players during practice that the 2 girls mention. So in canon, this guy went to this high school, saw a bunch of all these fucked up murders, and then becomes a member of the FBI and is like out there fucking around in the X-Files later. Right. I like it.
That track.
I like it. Stell, to your point earlier of there are probably details in here that reference back to actual like satanic panic things. Bob throws out that line of like one of the kids said that they were forced to play a game called Naked Movie Star.
Yeah.
Which seems like just a fucking off the cuff random ass thing. It's actually a reference to the McMartin preschool trial, which was part of the whole satanic panic ritual thing in the 80s and 90s. One of the allegations against McMartin preschool workers was that they forced children to play a game called Naked Movie Star. However, it just turns out that kids just say some random shit, and that was some rhyming game that they were playing, and they were never forced to play this game.
Yeah.
So if people don't know, all of the charges against the preschool workers were later dropped.
Their lives were ruined.
Their lives were fucking ruined, but yeah. And also, yeah, to your point, the crowd mentality and all of that stuff, that's all satanic panic, witch hunting setups, all of that stuff. Getting some casting stuff for this. That is Ryan Reynolds as Jay Boom.
You don't
Boom.
say.
Wikipedia says that guy's in Blade Trinity? Fuck. That's Jeremy Radrick as young man. I don't need to say anything. It's Ryan Reynolds.
We all
We weren't like.
We're gonna okay. That's Jeremy Raddick as young man. He got to start in Canadian television at age 12 in the show Time Exposures, and has a solid TV guest actor career since, while running his own theater company in Canada as well. That's Rick Brown as the minister in the funeral home. He won and done this as well. Gotta love it. This is a great one episode of X-Files to be in. That's Tim Dixon as Dr. Richard W. Godfrey, whom we talked about earlier for playing Bob in the episode Dwayne Barry. So he plays a different Bob in Dwayne Barry.
Weird.
That's Russell Porter as Scott Simmons. Scott.
He's got a chin.
He's got a face, you know. His other notable roles include playing Brad in Ernest Goes to School, guest appearances in Sliders, Poltergeist, The Legacy, Outer Limits, Harsh Realms, Arrow, Psych, that got Aaron good, and 2 episodes of Supernatural.
Hey, he had a face I recognize.
He's Sid in the season 6 opener Exile on Main Street.
Okay.
And he is Ronnie Cartwright in the season 10 episode 20 Angel Heart.
Well, season 6, episode 1. So they thought the whole thing would be done at the end of season 5. They wrap it up with a fucking bow. And then season 6, episode 1, they're like, oh, fuck, I guess we're still doing this show.
For 10 more seasons.
Season 6 is my least favorite season, even though it has the most Mitch Pileggi in it. Because it is them being like, there's even an episode that's like a meta episode that's fun, but they like go to a different universe. And the actual producer is like, season 6. Like, that is the vibe. And so what a cursed episode to be in. To be like, yeah, I guess we're still doing this. Well, season 10 is like, whatever, you know, I'm not looking that up. Angel Heart? Sure something happened.
Something
I'm
happens.
tired.
Something happens. Scott's in it. He's got a face.
Yeah.
That's Gabrielle Miller as Brenda J.C. Summerfield.
That is not how you play Bloody Mary.
That's not how you play Bloody Mary at all.
It's not.
We also see her in the X-Files episode Our Town, where she plays Paula Gray. Ooh. I'm not sure we get to Our Town.
Yeah, I don't know that we do.
She is a Canadian TV star, and movie star for her recurring roles on shows like Robson Arms and Corner Gas. Those shows mean nothing to us because we're not in Canada, but like she's a well-known person in Canada. TV guest role credits are long, but also appeared in episodes of The Sentinel, Frasier, Lost Girl, Haven, and not a ne'er single Supernatural episode. You've got a fan in me. That is Donalda Williams as Madame Zarinka. Who fucking nailed it. Dope. She previously played Marilyn in the X-Files episode Irresistible, which I don't think we touch because it's the creepy one about the guy killing sex workers and keeping trophies about the murders.
Yeah, she's, as I recall, also kind of a spitfire in that episode.
She's got a type, she's got a brand, and
she's doing it. Yeah. Has done a ton of TV episodes, including Malcolm in the Middle, 6 Feet Under, Freaks and Geeks, and more, with film roles in Roxanne, The Accused, Lucky Numbers, both Stakeout movies, and Ernest Rides Again. Also, in a Supernatural episode, she's Doris in season 3, episode 11, Mystery Spot.
Oh, Mystery Spot.
I've seen that. I've seen that one.
It's one of those ones that everybody's like, this is one of the ones.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Well, now you know she's in it, so you can be even more of a fan in it.
I love that you were like, I know this
I
one.
know that one is.
That is Gary Davey as Bob Spitz. Where have we talked about Gary Davey before? Well, he played Hunter in the X-Files episode Eve. He's Dr. Keats in Rowan, and he's the captain in Endgame. Damn, Gary, we've seen a lot of you on this show.
I've seen a lot of that man's face.
That's Lisa Robin Kelly as Terry Roberts. This gets into like a cool circular thing to start out with. Lisa Robin Kelly plays Terry Roberts. She also plays Lori Foreman on That 70s Show. She's the older sister on That 70s
Her
show.
face looks so familiar. And I was like, I don't know.
Her father, Kurtwood Smith, who plays Red Foreman in That 70s Show, is in the very next X-Files episode, By Date Grotesque. Also, Kurtwood Smith as Red Foreman and gets invited to a key party hosted by Mitch Pileggi on That 70s Show. It's a thing you should go check out.
Unofficial channels.
Unofficial channels to hear more about that. It's a very good episode of That 70s Show. She also did 26 episodes of Days of Our Lives, a bunch of TV guest work, and was a cheerleader in Jawbreaker.
Cheer yeller.
I think she's just a cheerleader in that. It was like cheerleader number 2. So she isn't part of the Yell Squad. She's on like the Squad.
The Cheer Yell Squad.
I never know what to do about this on this show because her life kind of ends tragically, and I don't have to go into it. If people don't, they can look it up if they want to.
Just like she did a good job in this episode. She was good in That 70s Show.
She's great. You should live in a world where if you need help, you can get it. That's it. Wendy Benson as Margie Kleinjan.
I hate this man.
Such a terrible
Let her
name.
meet Chris Carter. I'm just going to punch him right in the throat.
Explain yourself.
I love the X-Files except for all of the names.
Margie Kleinjan. It's got so many vowels. 6 episodes of I'll Fly Away, 2 episodes of 90210 before this, as well as 13 episodes of Muscle and 2 Murder, She Wrote. She has a co-starring role in Unhappily Ever After, 4 episodes of Desperate Housewives, and is in the 2010 movie Burlesque. And that brings us to Dana Wheeler, who plays Detective Angela White. A very noticeable TV face with a career that started in film in 1984 with larger roles in Fletch, Beverly Hills, Bunts, Tombstone, which is what I know her from by face when I watch that.
That's what I know her from too.
Yep.
I know her from Bunts.
And Bye Bye Love all before this, after this cast and TV roles in so many shows like Sex and the City, NYPD Blue, All My Children, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, Friday Night Lights, Nashville, and her last listed credits was an episode of SVU in 2022. And yes, after this episode, she was David Duchovny's dates to the Golden Globes. They did date for a while after this. That's something David did a lot. That's fine. I made out with a lot of people I was in plays with, so like no judges.
And he also got a lot of his girlfriend's roles on the X-Files
like,
too.
he got
So
a lot
it's
of his
like-
girlfriends pregnant.
You know who I have really great natural chemistry with?
This person I fucked.
This person. But like thinking about that, watching this episode, they do a really good job of being fucking awkward with one another in that scene. And it's not sexual at all. You're right. David Duchovny is cringing in upon
he's
himself.
Like, no, I like it in theory.
And she takes a wonderfully comedic gulp of that big vodka brand vodka bottle. Like really, really good stuff.
She's just
Vodka brand
great.
vodka.
Anyways, if I meet antimatter, I'm going to kiss him. Bye.
Bye.
And now for our overall thoughts.
You ready?
You're the driver.
These episodes tied together shockingly well.
Yeah, in like a bunch of strange ways.
There was destructive powers, both of them.
Yes, good job sticking to the actual theme.
Cool. There were corridors and hallways that people got trapped in.
That's true. There were a lot of corridor trappings.
There were two people that needed to be kept apart.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There were. Both episodes had the main characters being dicks to each other for no reason
Truly no
whatsoever.
reason.
No reason at all. Both of these could have been other themes that we have for later also. Spoiler for some themes coming up, but the Star Trek one could have also been time travel, and then the X-Files one could have been mess hysteria.
Time travel. It's like shoehorned in there. Like, yeah, time travel, antimatter.
Well, that's the idea, though, is that it's, I mean, what time travel is like legitimate time travel. It's parallel universe travel. I feel like it counts. They talked about the science. It counts.
Kind of.
Yeah, these... Like, both of them have a lot of talking about theoretical science, which is like a weird thing to spend a bunch of primetime television time doing, but it's interesting that they both do.
Yeah, they shockingly fit together
very well.
Shockingly well.
Shockingly well, yes.
So, fan questionnaire. As a fan, how would you say this episode holds up compared to the other ones? I feel like you gave a whole dissertation on this already.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like this is the epitome of what you think a Star Trek episode is if you've never seen Star Trek. And so, like, in that sense, it holds up great.
No. I think this holds up pretty well. I think that cohesively, like, the plot does make sense from beginning to end, which is, like,
shocking.
Not always the case, especially with Chris Carter ones. And it does, yeah, I think it makes sense for their characters, even though their characters were acting kind of out of character. It wasn't that they were acting out of character. It's that like the planets made them more extreme in their characters, which made sense. And it walks that line of like, I feel like a lot of episodes have, even though this one was supposed to be like more comedic, that like kind of dark comedy instead of just like, you know, some of them are like slapsticky or whatever. And this one, it has like a dark edge, whatever. So I feel like it holds up pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. What would you say is the most X-Files episode moment of the episode?
Probably Mulder putting that teen into a chokehold and throwing her in a closet.
Just dragging her ass down, and the other one's just walking, totally fine, unassisted, walking down the hallway. He's like, you know what, go in there. He and Scully both push her into the closet.
They were like, that's what I think. Kirk pushes that one dude into the interdimensional corridor or whatever, and then Scully and Mulder are like, fine, get in the closet.
Get fucked. Get in there.
What would you say is the most Star Trek episode or Star Trek moment of the episode?
I feel like I already gave a dissertation on this exact thing. All the flinging, all of the lights, all of the like weird.
Those are multiple moments?
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. I feel like the whole episode
what about
is
the actual Star Trek moments, not the like fake Star Trek moments.
Did you forget about Spock saying, "Why are you angry? I just logicked out why you're a liar."
Yeah, he said, "Sorry, bitch, you're a liar."
You're a bitch, and then Kirk going, "My boy said you're a bitch."
Yeah, that feels very.
Actually, you know what? I think my answer is that they did something in this episode that I find very funny. They kept shooting it very close to their faces. So they're having this conversation and it's these like extreme close-ups. And then we'd cut to a wide shot where they're standing like a normal distance from each other. So you get this like very close, intense, we're talking right in each other's faces. This is very important. And then it's like, actually, we're just having a totally normal conversation, which I found very funny.
The perspective in the 60s is wildly gay. Are you shipping anybody in this episode?
Spurk, for sure.
Yeah.
Again, part of it is the way that it's cut. It's so strange. It's so 60s. It's very 60s television.
Yeah.
Are you shipping Mulder and Scully in this?
Probably those teenage girls who probably should have just like made out.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Instead of killing everybody.
I was going to say too earlier, one of the things that I when they are trying to like directly be like, oh, they're not in love, LOL, fuck you fans. When she is like, I'm going back to Washington, he like slumps against the wall like a romantic lead, like, oh.
And she's acting jealous the whole time. So like, it definitely feels like unrequited or like
both of them are unrequited.
Yeah, classic.
Classic. Is this a fuck, fine, or a flop?
I would give this a fine plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine plus for me.
All right. I think this is a fine episode. Personally, I loved it, but like generally and objectively, no, it's not a flop.
Everybody, you're literally the only person that does like objectively. It is a flop. Like, how fucking dare you?
I had a delightful time.
Good for you. I'm so tired.
It's so late. We've got to wrap this up.
Right, wrap it up, Erin.
All right. You can find us on the internet. You can follow us at NYD Productions on Twitter and interact with the show using hashtag #XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
You can find me kissing me in the dimensional chamber.
You can also email us at xtrexpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. If you want a fic link where they cannot be together and they must be separated or like tragedy will happen, I probably could find one of those. Or if you just want one where they fuck so hard that they destroy something, I definitely have those.
Speaking of those links, speaking of unofficial channels, speaking of Spooky 30s, speaking of this episode, which we live stream to our Discord while we're recording it right now, you can find so much more content that we create, access to that Discord, which has the links that Stella just talked about, by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions, where you can get all of that content and more for as little as $1.
I mean, I don't put those links up actively. Like, if you ask for it, I'll put the links up.
There's a whole Discord channel.
I know, but like, it's not like I'm like flooding it with links. It's like if somebody's like, hey, do you have a link for this? I'll be like, yeah, here you go.
Yeah, you're a dealer, not a
Yeah.
librarian.
Thank you. Do you have some Google Sheets, though, if people want access to
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for Mind Control. In the meantime,
Believe boldly.
Seek truth.
ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.
I have considered all the alternatives. My best guess is it could be a prelude to invasion.
Exactly our consensus. I'm giving you the job of finding out specifically.
Aye, sir. Can you assign me other starships as a reserve?
Negative. I'm evacuating all Starfleet units and personnel within 100 parsecs of your position. It's going to be tough on you and the Enterprise, but that's the job you've drawn. You're on your own.
I see. You mean we're the bait?
Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Maintain alert status at all battle stations.
Aye, aye, sir.
From the top, Mr. Spock.
That's some wet ass